Welcome to Three Conservative Gimps. We've got a great show today because today's show is extra special. "2022 Election Predictions" with special guests, former congressman from the great state of Michigan, Thaddeus McCotter. He will be joining us shortly. So, let's bring on our panelists, all the way from Muskogee, Oklahoma, the effervescent, the never shy Lloyd Mendenhall. How are you, sir? Good to see you.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How about you?
Great. Let's get this going. Let's bring in our other panelists, all the way from Syracuse. He's the good Orangeman. Let's welcome Mike Roach. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Art. Hi, Lloyd.
Hey, Mike. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. And I'm the good Orangeman because they stunk pretty bad yesterday. I'll tell you that. So,
all right, let's get this show going. Let's bring in our special guest from the great state of Michigan. Let's welcome the effervescent Thaddeus McCotter.
How are you, Art?
Lloyd, welcome. Good to see you.
Good seeing you, Thaddeus.
Thaddeus, good to meet you.
We're not as great as Red Eye, but hey, we're working on it.
Yeah.
The late great.
Yeah. We eventually want to be the Gutfield show.
Yeah. So, Thaddeus, it looks like the race is tightening up there in the governor's race there in Michigan. What are you hearing on the streets there?
Well, as you know, Art, it's very difficult to poll these days. I myself am a good example. I'm not going to talk to a stranger over the phone about anything political, especially in the age of cancel culture and with the left trying to weaponize the bureaucracy to stifle dissent. So when you look at it in Michigan, it says that Governor Whitmer is well ahead, but we're also seeing now recently those polls narrow. And I think that's a result of the national wave. Tudor Dixon is the Republican candidate here. She's a very good candidate, a very natural candidate, but this is her first time out. And as she was endorsed by Donald Trump in the primary, I think that has led to a lot of the establishment Republicans not donating to her campaign, causing her a paucity of funds compared to Governor Whitmer. She's being heavily outspent both by the governor's campaign and by third-party Democratic organizations. So it's a tough road to climb. She's getting good advice, not from me. Not me, but from other people who know what they're doing here in Michigan. And so I think overall the campaign itself has a chance to win if it can just catch that wave properly. But again, it's not her fault that she's being so heavily outspent in many ways. It's just a continuing struggle between Donald Trump and the Republican establishment, trying to lay the groundwork for 2024.
I just saw the Trafalgar poll, which is one of the most accurate polls out there, and they show it as a pretty darn tight race where Whitmer has, a slight point or two lead.
Yeah, no one has figured out. I would argue that the vast majority of people who refuse to be polled are Republicans or conservatives, are generally people who do not trust sharing their political views in this climate.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a country that has free speech as a God-given, constitutionally recognized and protected right. Nonetheless, when you look at it, we also have on the ballot here in Michigan, we have Proposal 3, which puts back in place abortion here in Michigan in the Constitution. And then you also have Proposal 2, which would amount to essentially putting in place all the things that the Democrats did with private money being used in clerks' offices, in the Secretary of State's office for special interests, subsidized ballot harvesting that we saw in 2020, which is very unfortunate. It's basically renting the imprimatur of the state for one party or the other. Look, who's going to give money to a Secretary of State just out of the kindness of their heart so people can vote?
Yeah, exactly.
That's not what they're going to do, and they don't rule out the strings that will come attached to it when you take these grants, which we saw. So these are major issues that are also on the ballot. The Democrats put them there, figuring it would drive out their voters and help them, both now and in the long run. Hopefully, both will lose, but they're also spending tons of money to pass them. And it's kind of ironic here in Michigan, the voters can put things on the ballot to be placed in the Constitution, not in the statute book. This is a constitutional initiative. So in many ways in Michigan, we have no guaranteed constitutional rights because it only takes 50+1 to change them at any given time. In short, we're turning our Constitution into a super statute book. Statute book on steroids, and anyone in the country can spend money to change the constitutional rights of people in Michigan, and we're seeing that now with Proposal 3.
We have the same issue here in Colorado, where they tried to make us go away from oh God. What's that called when you have all your congressmen, they add up your senators, electoral college. That's the word I'm looking
put
for.
You in a compact.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which when it gets to the Supreme Court, this is exactly the type of compact among states that were prohibited by the Constitution.
Yeah.
This is exactly what you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, it's going to, the compact situation like that, I think will be thrown out. I mean, just, it's a direct violation of our Constitution.
Right. It's a direct challenge to the Electoral College, which is in the Constitution. States cannot unilaterally decide they're going to band together to violate the expressed provisions of the Constitution. So I think, Lloyd, you're absolutely right.
However, states can change how the electoral votes are tabulated or broken up, like Nebraska and Maine are different examples of how they do it, a little different than the rest of the country.
Well, they do their legislature. The legislature is different. I know what you're saying, but that's within the state. That's intrastate.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What they're trying to do with what they're trying to do with Colorado and other places, California was a big one. They want to tie you to a majority vote determines all the electorals amongst them, which means the people in California now get to determine what the Electoral College votes are in Oklahoma or in Colorado or wherever, which is
other places,
absolutely antithetical to what the Constitution lays out. And in many ways, it gets us one step closer to the tyranny of the majority, which the Democrats are all about.
Right. Yeah, because the states have the rights to set how, as you say, like some states are winner takes all. Some are a split electoral college. It just depends. But when it comes to states entering into a pact, that is a direct violation of the electoral laws in the Constitution. For that very reason, because they don't want California, trying to, they're the biggest. They'll have the most electoral, and then say Nevada joins in or Arizona joins in. Well, they're smaller. And yet they're going to be white. They'll have the control, and that's exactly what they were trying to keep that. I think so that states still have their own rights. They can determine how they use those electoral colleges, but the Constitution, they cannot enter with other states
it's a diminishment of the individual's power.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if the smaller the area in which my vote matters, the more important it is. So if I live in, let's say North Dakota, and I'm going to let the people in California are going to basically decide who's going to be the president. It doesn't matter.
It's only 3 electoral votes.
So it means all I got to do is be nice to
South
California.
Dakota, Wyoming.
Yeah, throw all the money at California, and North Dakota gets nothing, but they get dragged along for the ride.
Exactly.
Again, we are looking at a party right now, the Democratic Party, that is really there. This isn't the This is a
This
decidedly
isn't your
leftist
dad's
party. It's
old
not even that. It's not even
Democrat.
that. This is a decidedly leftist Democratic Party. It's not left of center. It's leftist. There's a vast difference. A vast difference, and you can see it, especially the traditional Democratic Party always championed free speech. Right now, this misinformation, disinformation, maladministration, what they're doing is really weaponizing government to stifle dissent and censor their opponents and cancel people.
Yeah,
it's the social credit system of the communist Chinese in this nascent stages that the bureaucracy is putting in place, and these are all Democrats doing it. So when you look at this is not what the Democratic Party used to stand for. And when you look at it now, they don't care particularly about. They consider support of individual rights to be counter to the collective, dangerous, and extreme, when in fact it's something that we've always been working on for 200 years, liberty and equality. Instead, what they want is socialism and the collective. And your rights be damned in their minds.
Now, Mike, what are you hearing on the streets in Syracuse and New York?
Well, most people here in central, the middle of the state, most people I've talked to, of course, they're in my circle of friends. I want to go for Lee Zeldin because Hochul's is a train wreck, and she's more extreme than Cuomo was. Cuomo was on a power trip, but she's a loose cannon, as far as we can tell, and extremely left. Lee Zeldin is, I know, closed the gap in the polls for what they're worth. So, like you were saying, Thaddeus, I think most people to the right are hesitant to take a poll. I won't take a poll because they structure the questions wrong. It's all wrong. So I won't bother. So I'm hoping there's a couple of points there for Zeldin that don't show up right now that will on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think with that woman that was killed by her ex-boyfriend, he'd been arrested the day before, gets out and becomes an executioner. I think that has had a lot of influence on, because he was, no cash bail,
Right.
And I think that's done a lot in the last 2 weeks from what I'm seeing to really start moving that needle towards the Republican side for New York, which would be outstanding, you know.
Now, a question from Mike. Wasn't someone who was a supporter of Lee Zeldin recently attacked by a leftist activist? Wasn't there an attack at one of the rallies recently?
I know that Zeldin was attacked.
I know he was too, yes.
And
but
I haven't heard that because he's not getting a whole lot of coverage,
right.
Just organically in, say, local news. Although now it is, he is because it's getting closer. So unless you go to Fox or Newsmax, you basically don't hear about Zeldin. But I'm actually not sure that is because, I've donated to his campaign, but I haven't followed, the news day per day. Election day is the only poll that matters. But Zeldin also had a shooting right outside his house,
right
on the front lawn there, basically. And it goes to show how crime in New York, not just the city, but the whole state, but especially down in the city where all the blue votes are, for the most part. Hopefully they are sick of this stuff and will, for their own safety, vote her out and give Lee Zeldin a chance. It's not like he's a far right person. So, he's palpable to downstate people, I think.
Now, Mike, does that manifest itself in them just not voting, or do they affirmatively vote for Lee Zeldin downstate?
I'm hoping a little of both of affirmatively voting for Zeldin. I like most of what he said, but I think there's a certain anti-Hochul percentage out there who's just, for me, I hate to sound misogynistic or whatever, but just listening to her talk is painful, and she just sounds awful. And when the one debate that they did that I saw, she basically didn't answer a question, and he got right to the point. He was on spot on every issue, where she just kind of danced around and didn't really say anything when it comes down to it.
And then she shuffled off the crime, saying, "Why are you worried about crime?" I'm like going, "Wow, that's a big red flag right there."
I think what is helping the Republican message is Thaddeus, last time you were on, we were talking about if they stick to the point, if they all right, let's talk about abortion and then let's move on. And they've been, almost everything I've seen, they've been staying on point. The Republican nominees are really sticking to the game plan. We've got a few that kind of get, unfortunately, our former president just this weekend, I guess, decided he doesn't like Ron DeSantis again. So, it's like they really need to mute his mic. I don't know what he said, but I just know that it's ticked off a lot of Republicans.
I think he called him Ron DeSanctimonious, something like that. He was nicknaming it.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Now's not the time. We saw some of this in 2021 during the special elections down in Georgia. Where he took more time to attack Republicans than he did to call out the Democrats that were running.
Yeah,
but it's just it's like football, man. You got to play through it.
Yeah. You're stuck with the team you're stuck with. I mean, it's like OU Texas game. That was so sad. It made me want to cry. I mean, OU set a record of the worst loss to Texas in the whole Red River rivalry. So 40-0. I mean, come on, that wasn't even a game. They might as well stayed home. And I hope that the Republicans don't do this. I hope this isn't a forebear to what the election is going to be. I hope that. But I think for the most part, everything I'm seeing, they're staying on point. The people that need Trump to back him are the ones that are using that as a good sounding board. But the ones in states where it's maybe everybody's just slightly right of center, or they're and even the independents, maybe a little either way. They're pretty well straight.
Like, for example, here in Colorado, we have 3 races that are very competitive. For once, the governor's race is competitive, and we've got Heidi Ganahl that's within striking distance. Trafalgar has it as a dead heat with Jared Polis, and she's been on point. And at the debate, she's been hammering it at Polis for fentanyl, high crime, auto thefts, all of that. And his ads, he's coming out saying, "Oh, what are they talking about? We're here to protect your freedom by not standing between you and your doctor. And a woman's health is very important." So that's their speak on abortion. So they're still hammering that. We have we've got a couple. We got a Senate race where Michael Bennett. That race is a dead heat right now, and their Democrats are pouring a crap ton of money into that race. Joe O'Dea, he's only a couple points away, so that could be an upset there. We've got 2 House races here. We've got the new district, CD 8, and it looks like Kirkmeyer has the edge on that, and that's a competitive district. And CD 7 is somewhat competitive, but it is, I think, D+12. Adlin is in striking distance of winning that race. And Brittany Pedersen, former state rep or senator, she's the one that voted for making fentanyl a misdemeanor and making auto theft a misdemeanor, where you don't need to have a bond. You could get out on a PR bond. So it's just crazy here in Colorado. I don't know, Thaddeus, if you follow Red Eagle Politics. They're a YouTube channel and they do predictions and stuff. And I could tell this guy is a big Trump supporter. And he's like bashing some of our candidates here, especially O'Day and Ganal, and oh, they're weak, they're rhinos, but they're not gonna win. And it's like, you know, stuff like that.
It's very unfortunate because people don't realize that elections are not all or nothing. Because in the end, you're going to get something. Yeah. So the question is the something I'm getting better or worse?
Yeah.
And when you start using terms like rhino and things like that, what you're doing is you're helping electing someone who's going to be far worse than the other person. Mm-hmm. And plus, a lot of that comes from people who don't live in those districts or those states will then complain about what the primary has chosen to do in those states. I don't live in Colorado, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you O'Day's a rhino heading into this election and you should be better off with Bennett. That's insane. Bennett's terrible. But again, I don't live there. You have a primary. This is your candidate. You've chosen to be your standard bearer, and I trust that you will be better than what the Democrats have nominated based upon what they've done. And I would urge people to avoid what they're already starting to do is they're already starting to take credit for this wave. One, we don't know what's going to happen. But more importantly, the reason this wave is here is really because the Democratic Party's policies fail. They invariably fail. That's why I'm not a Democrat. That's why most people right now who are independent are switching to the Republican side to vote Republican this time. And it's not because Donald Trump said something or somebody's a wonderful candidate. It's because the reality they deal with is the Democratic policies are failing Americans every day, every single waking minute of every day. And they know it. And so they're going to vote for a party that will help change that. And then it will be incumbent upon the Republicans, if they do get entrusted with a majority, to actually do the things that are required to the American people to help make their lives better and get government out of the way. And to get the bureaucratic supremacists out of the way from stifling dissent and trying to censor everything under the sun. So in the final analysis, I don't want to see people running around. This is Donald Trump's victory. This is the American
exactly.
We're called for help. Now help us do the right thing and put good policies in place.
Well, you and I talked about the last time. I said, and we've talked about this before, if anybody can lose this, the Republicans can do it because, you know, what they do in their primaries is they give ammunition to the, you know, they're so bitter and divided that they give ammunition to the Democrats. And right now, the same people, the same independents that voted for Biden 2 years ago are going, man, I made a mistake. I'm going back in to correct that. Let's see if we can get some control back. But if the Republicans don't deliver within this next year, if they spend the next 2 years trying to, you know, let's have another 6 rounds of hearing on January 6th and make everything that the Democrats said, let's correct that. Let's correct the impeachments from Donald Trump. If they come in there and all they're going to do is revenge, but they don't deal with any of the issues like the inflation, the crime, the fentanyl problem, the open borders. If they don't do something to fix that, they got 2 years to do this. I guarantee you, because the next election is going to be the worst this country will have, because they'll go with a Democrat, whoever that might be. God help us, it's Joe Biden again, but I don't think it will. But they're going to go Democrats again, and then the Democrats, you know, because if we do nothing as Republicans, we just sit here and do nothing for 2 years. Well, that means we're not undoing some of the stuff that the last 2 years have brought us. And if we, so that's still going to continue on, and it's going to have 4 years of momentum. And the Republicans, if they get the majority and they don't do anything or try to do anything, well, in 2024, it's not going to look good for this country. I really believe that. But the Republicans cannot sit on their hands. They better have some decent plans, and they need to get along, and they need to reach across, because there's a lot of Democrat congressmen that are sitting there that are not happy with what the way their party's headed, and those are the ones you need to reach across and say, what can we do to make this better?
Yep.
You know,
Yep. I think
for
the word
America.
you're looking for, Lloyd, is circular firing squad.
Yeah,
Yep.
and that's exactly what the Republicans do to themselves every
Yep.
time. You know, it's just
Mm-hmm.
a circular firing squad. It's just, and my son I was talking to him the other day, and he said the first thing they need to do, they need to pass, get things passed and have enough to override any vetoes, and require that yearly a cognitive test be done on the commander in chief, no matter which party he's from. And if he can't pass a cognitive test, it's time to invoke Article 25. You know, because
About the
whether it be
incontinent test too.
yeah, well, I'm not worried about that, but cognitive test, because there's days I scratch my head at Donald Trump and think, all right, he's he apparently just pulled out he's just playing with all the jokers in his deck today. So
Mm-hmm.
and I was a Trump supporter. I have been, but it's like
Yep.
I just shake my head some days, and but they need to do something substantive. They need to get these borders closed. But they don't have to have Joe Biden signatures. They can just pull the funding. They can just refuse to fund
Mm-hmm.
some of the programs that are being used to keep the borders open.
Part of the problem is, and especially in a wave election, the moderates in both parties are the ones who generally lose their seats because they're in the swing seats.
Yeah.
So if the Republicans do have a wave election and they do very, very well in the House, there's not going to be a lot of moderates left to
No,
engage.
Unfortunately, yeah, you're right. You're
And
right.
I don't think there's going to be a lot of opportunity because the Democrats and the Republicans too are all going to be trying to shape the battlefield for 2024, the political battlefield.
Mm.
And so I think the best thing that we can hope for, and Lloyd, you're right about this, is at least to pass legislation that shows we are trying to address the needs of the American people and leave it up to Mr. Biden to either get on board or veto it to his own detriment. I think he's not running again. So it's more likely he's going to veto everything that he doesn't like.
Yeah.
Far left.
That's
Yeah.
my
But at
thought
least
of
that will show the American people who's trying and who's standing in the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what they need to do. They need to start passing some substance that is going to at least show, because like you said, they're set either way. If they sit on their hands in 2024, we're going to see what's going on is going to keep going on, and it's going to get worse. And in 2024, they say Republicans didn't do anything. Let's see what the Democrats are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when this country is going to be changed, I think, irreparably. I can see that happening. So I'm hoping the Republicans actually will bring something to the table, and let's quit fighting. Let's quit, let's conservatives. I don't care if you're, right of center to the very conservatives. We need to work together. End of conversation. And whether we get anything done, like you said, Biden will probably rubber stamp everything with that veto, but maybe we'll be lucky enough to have enough votes in the House to actually override the veto. I don't know how many we need to override one, and let's hope they have the backbone to do it. That's the other thing.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be hard to get Democrats to override Biden enough to do that.
Yeah.
I just don't see the wave being big enough to do that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
You're right. You have to show the country, and you have to speak to the country properly. And I think there are things that need to be investigated, but what has to happen more than anything else is the legislation has to come forward. It has to be measured. People have to be told about what it is, why it will help. And if Mr. Biden wants to veto it, that's his right. And we'll try to override it. And those Democrats, if they want to get on board, fine. If they don't, they don't. Of course, a lot of that stems from winning the Senate. Michigan doesn't have a Senate. We don't have a Senate seat up here in Michigan. I know Art does.
Yeah.
If you did in Oklahoma, it's going to be Republican. There's not.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Is there, Mike?
Yeah, yeah. Mike, do you have a Senate seat coming up?
Isn't it?
Schumer, I think, is up, but he's probably going to get reelected.
Yeah, we actually do have because our senator. Oh, my mind just went blank. I can see his face. I recognize the wrinkles. I could describe him, but for all of a sudden, my mind just went blank. He's retiring after the election, but he wanted to, or he's going to retire, and so he chose not to run again for the Senate. So that left the seat open, and I think Mullins is probably going to take his seat. I can't remember his first name, but Mullins is his last name, and he's actually my congressman. I'm in his district, and I've actually spoke to him. So that's maybe we'll have a senator up there that I can. Hey, we need some Mark Wayne Mullins. That's the guy that's I think is going to win it. But yeah, you're right. It'll be a Republican probably.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget about those third-party candidates. They tend to be spoilers, which I'm really worried about that happening here in Colorado. We had a woman who lost in the primary, the Republican primary, joined the American Constitutional Party as their candidate for governor. I'm like, right on, let's screw the people again. And of course, there's a libertarian running and so forth. I don't think there are any in the congressional race. But I may be wrong. But I know there's one running for the Senate. So, yeah. Hopefully the wave is big enough. Because here in Colorado, the biggest slice of the pie is the unaffiliated. They're close to 40% of the voters here. And the Democrats are, in the 30s, and the Republicans have the smallest slice of the pie. So hopefully we could count on those unaffiliates to say, you know what, we're kind of tired of high gas prices and crime and all this crap that's happening. Let's get Heidi and Joe O'Dea over the line, and hopefully we get them into office.
Yeah. Our biggest thing right now is really our governor's race, and it's our current governor, Governor Stitt, who is a conservative, but he also tends to rub people the wrong way, and his stance on education is different. Of course, the Democrat running against him is the teacher of the year, so she's a Democrat, and the first time that it's happened that I know of, and I think it's the first time in history, is the Indian tribes, the Native American tribes, have stepped in and actually endorsed the Democrat. They never endorsed, but because our governor has gotten in a, because of the McGirt decision and a few others, they've been in a tug of war for the last 2 years, and especially the Cherokee Nation has decided they've had enough, and so they're actually backing the Democrat, which is the first time they've ever done it. They tend to be moderates. Well, they're usually right of center because they're very family oriented, but they've also, in social wise, they're very much liberal when it comes to social things, but that also relates to their being family oriented because they want these things in place to help all of the members of their tribe. Unfortunately, I live on a reservation, but I'm not Native American, so I don't get any of that good stuff. So, so we have that divisiveness here in Oklahoma. Other than that, I mean, that's what we got going on with our governor. I still think he's going to win, but because I just don't think the state is ready to. Because we had Democrats for years, but they were blue dog Democrats. So,
right.
So they're not ready to go with the socialist Democrats yet. They're just not. Even if this teacher wins, she's a moderate.
Until she isn't.
Until she isn't. Yeah, exactly. As soon as she gets in there, it's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But hey, we might. the good thing is I think they're going to put legalized casual marijuana, you know, on the ballot. So if nothing else, I'll just get stoned and forget about it for 4 years.
Kind of like Biden.
I don't smoke that stuff. I'm just letting you know right now. That was sarcasm. But, you know, maybe it'll mellow
here
out
in
the state.
Colorado on the ballot, we've got hallucinogenics on the ballot.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of hallucinogenics going on in the White House, but that's just my personal opinion.
Well, we've been getting these ads that I've been seeing on YouTube, and now I'm seeing them on TV where they have a soldier saying, "I've been suffering from PTSD with suicidal thoughts and depression, but my therapist got me on hallucinogenics, and I've got my life back."
The left is using the military too to pass Proposal 2, which is the special interest paid for ballot harvesting, and so they're trying to dupe conservatives into voting for proposals by using the military to try to some of the left wingers, and it's very unfortunate and it's very duplicitous actually, because it doesn't talk about what Proposal 2 really does.
Right.
Well, and I guarantee you, like Art, you were saying that veteran come out and said that. Well, I guarantee you, his therapist was a private therapist. It was not a VA therapist. Right. They are not going to, you know, they're not going to prescribe.
It wasn't self-medicating.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That itself already tells you he's working with a licensed professional. He's not self-medicating like everybody else will do if it passes.
Yeah, well, and the thing is the VA is so, you know, he'll lose it. He could very possibly lose his, if he's got any VA benefits. Just because he's a veteran doesn't mean he has any benefits. But if he does, he could lose him, because I guarantee you, I can take, I might have a prescription of a Lortab that I've been, you know, I saved that last one from when I got my tooth pulled the last time, or from 6 years ago. You know, like, okay, it's not turned green yet, and I'm really hurting tonight. I'll take this. Just that one time, and 6 months later, said, "When did you take that Lortab?" Like, really? You know? Okay. So I guarantee you, I don't take anything unless they prescribe it. And I have 2 doctors, but in Oklahoma, they can see everything that I take. So, oh, I see you're on such a, yes, I am, you know? And so they know what I'm taking, you know, and so I guarantee you, those veterans that are pushing for hallucinogenics, they're going to have a real wake-up call when it comes to their VA benefits when they go in there, because those VA doctors will not put up with that. You know, not today. 30 years ago, yeah, they might have done that. They might have prescribed them themselves, but now they're not going to do it.
Well, I mean, we don't know much about a lot of this. I mean, there was an ad for Proposal 2. Again, they privately subsidized ballot harvesting. And it has a guy who's pretending to be a blue collar worker. And so he sits there in this kitchen area and he goes, "I don't like a whole lot of that political garbage." And I'm like, dude, you're in a political ad. Okay. Yeah. Right away, we know this is a bunch of BS. Okay. This is some actor who's sitting there pretending he doesn't care, and he's pushing, "Oh, I'm just trying to do the right thing." No, you're not. Okay. We get it. I hate political stuff. That's why I'm in an ad. Perfect.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't mind political stuff.
And Lloyd, tell us who your running mate is.
This guy right here. He's going to be my vice presidential running mate in 2024. We're going to, you know, I've got a lot. I've got friends that work in the florist, work as florist, and they're going to make sure that all of the graves are decorated the day before Election Day, so all those dead people will vote for me this time instead of Biden.
And what's our slogan again?
Bite me. I stand for nothing.
Honest and catchy.
I stand for nothing.
Look very good on bumper.
Yeah, I know, right? Bite me. I actually have stickers that say that, I think. So,
right. And another big issue, obviously, right now in every state of the country is inflation too. Right now,
oh yeah.
You know, another elephant in the room. everybody's feeling it, whether it's at the gas pump, the grocery store, the restaurant, wherever. Just every single thing, a stick of gum, everything has gone up. And, I would think that would always hurt the party in the White House.
Yeah.
And you got milk that's more expensive than gas.
Yeah, and now this diesel situation coming up, I guarantee you those truckers can't get diesel. We're going to be, you thought the toilet paper shortage was as bad in 2020. If they can't deliver, if there truly is a diesel shortage coming, we are going to be in a world of hurt in this country.
Right.
Yeah. And there's no need for it to be. I mean, we have, they just need to relax. They need to make the process easier so that they can get these, and get to pumping. They may have the leases, but if they're, if the states, step up and interfere with the process, well then, they can't do anything about it. It doesn't matter how many leases they've got if they can't use those leases because of regulations and that is, you mentioned that, all the regulatory garbage that they've got to go through, and
and then the regulations on the bank that preventing them from getting the loans that they need to do the exploration and to drill those wells.
Yeah.
Right, the whole ESG thing and all that stuff. It's crazy, but it seems like the left is not running away from their policies. They're doubling down. Like, the more you hear Biden talk, I think he's basically told what to say, except for when he wanders off script. And it seems like, when they ask him about fuel and this, that, and the other, it's always, well, we're going to speed up the transition to renewables. It's not, let's drill, baby, drill. And, I know I would love for us to be able to get on some so-called renewable energies, but we're not there yet. And, we need fuel now. Look at Europe, what they're going to be going through this winter in some of those countries. And, we don't want that to be our future. So I hope people are just, their kitchen table, pocketbook things right now, crime, inflation, supply chain issues, and very tangible thing, very understandable stuff for everybody. You don't need to be very political to make a decision.
Well, what you're really starting to see is the upper middle class, the very wealthy that support the Democratic Party, are basically insulated from the consequences of their ideological decisions.
Right.
So they're not going to be the ones who suffer from the state-imposed scarcity and misery that the Democratic policies have put in place. They're just not.
Right.
They have the luxury. Basically, it's the old limousine liberals. They don't pay any price for the misery that they impose upon others because they can afford it. They can afford to continue on their lifestyle. They don't care. And I think that some of it you'll continue to see from them. It's why they're losing, though, amongst minorities and amongst working class voters.
Yeah.
And I think especially suburban mothers, if you go back through and you start to look at some of the suburban women that are voting and you start to look at their socioeconomic status, I'll bet you they're all middle class or probably down, the bulk of them, that are switching to the Republican side this time around, independents, because they cannot afford the policies of the Democratic Party. So when Joe Biden wants to talk about the ideological fantasy about moving to renewables as if we can get rid of fossil fuels all of a sudden with a wave of this magic hand, that's not going to happen. And they wonder where all this inflation is coming from when they're spending trillions of dollars to insulate basically leftist organizations and create a political base and fund that political base with your tax dollars, which is causing a lot of the problems that we're seeing now. So economically, they've created a disaster. They've made it far worse than it's ever been. And hopefully the voters will see through all their arguments and put in place a majority that I hope follows your advice, Lloyd, and actually does something that shows the people that they've earned the trust.
Yeah, that's the key. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I wish Uncle Elon would go ahead and send me one of those Teslas, not because I support the renewable energy, but I think they're cool. I just think I love technology, but I'm smart enough. I mean, I fly drones. Art, all three of us here fly drones, and you know, I don't know if you do, Thaddeus, or not, but
Oh.
we know what a lipo battery can do. We know what these batteries can do. There's many of us have either had one blow up, had one burn, so we know what the technology. Even though they use a different, you know, battery in these cars, they can still. They're just not there yet. Mike, you said we're not ready for that, and to bankrupt this country just trying to prove a, yeah. And I think when you were describing that, Mike, about, you know, that, or well, both of you guys were talking about, what I see is, you know, like you said, the rich are sitting up there isolated. Well, they're the same people like down in South America that, you know, look at some of the South American countries that have the oil, you know, like Venezuela, and yet they have socialist governments down there, and the people are starving. They're, you know, the rich people are doing great, but, you know, the poor and the middle class, they're starving under socialism, and it's just that, it's just, you know, where did all the oligarchs come from in Russia? Well, they're the ones that were party leaders when it was the Soviet Union, you know, or the children of party leaders, you know. So it's like they're just, I don't understand that. You know, and I don't think Middle America is going to put up with it too much longer. I think I hate to say anything about January 6th, but I think that was a frustration. I think that's what came out of it. Yeah, it was terrible. I thought it was stupid. I thought that was the most ignorant thing they could have done. They hurt themselves more. You know, they hurt the conservative movement more than anything else by doing that. But that just shows a level of frustration of the average, you know, middle American and the conservative, you know, the conservative, you know, middle class and the conservative in the middle of the road American. They're just that frustrated, you know, and I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, I just hope that the Republicans, like I said, will actually at least put something up there. It's like they were going to repeal and replace Obamacare. Well, that fizzled into nothing, you know, that amounted to very little, and we paid for it, you know. We're paying for it at the gas pumps. We're paying for it at the grocery stores. You know, we're paying for it at the hardware stores. You know, it's just,
and
it's
you
very
know,
frustrating.
And also, it frightens me too, the way that the strategic oil reserve has been depleted pretty low, and you know, to refill it now would be extremely expensive, and you know, and then when it comes to Teslas, they are cool and everything, but if you can get people to think that through, they aren't necessarily as green as people would like to think. You know, what it takes to make all those batteries. And
all those batteries, yeah. And
dispose
of them when they're done. Yeah.
Right. And
what?
No.
And they're
were they
not
good for about 3
to
years?
replace either.
Yeah. $5,000 to replace them at today's prices.
$20,000.
Oh, is it $20,000? Okay.
Yes.
$20,000 to replace the batteries at today's prices. 5 years from now, what's it going to cost? You know.
Yep.
Right. Plus, the electricity still has to come from somewhere. You know.
That's right. Yep. And they're pushing solar and wind energy, but what are we going to do when the sun doesn't shine, or it's cloudy out, or there's not enough wind?
Well,
we got to have a backup for that. And that's why we got to have, natural gas power plants, coal power plants. I mean, the coal that we've been burning has been, those plants are so clean that maybe only a few percentage of the pollutants come out of those stacks. I mean, compared to what we were doing 50 years ago, where you saw this black soot just flying out of the stack, it's not like that anymore.
Or 120 years ago, like in England, when they started manufacturing at the beginning of the beginning of the manufacturing revolution there. I mean, people were dying for stuff. It was just, we're light years ahead of that. But, you know, good way to cut back on some of this is, hey, why do we need to go to the moon? You know, another place for us to go and destroy like we've done our own planet, or Mars. I mean, yeah, it's a wonderful, I think it's great that we're finally at least building something again, or trying to, you know, here in the States, you know, trying to have something to, but when you start looking at
But it's private sector now.
yeah, but
I mean, like we got Bezos, we've got
Musk.
I mean,
Well,
And
let's not forget the Chinese and a lot of our strategic enemies are weaponizing space. So we have a state.
this is true. Yes, yeah.
And it's not as if we could just wash our hands and walk away.
Right.
Well, no, that's true. That's true. There is a lot of that, especially like, and that's the other thing. You know, what do they? This administration has just, they say stuff and do stuff, and you know, I'm sure everybody here agrees that Biden probably isn't really running the White House. He's just there.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
He's our King Charles III.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
He's the front man.
Yeah.
I think Obama's running the show, and even Obama is telling the Democrats to, you know, tone it down. You guys are buzzkills.
Yeah, I wrote about that, Art. Look, Obama's trying to cover his legacy, shall we say.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the policies he's put in place, he's letting Biden take the heat for, and he gets to walk around saying, oh, man, what are we getting us? Oh, everybody calm down, chill out. It's like, no, this is what you wanted. You were an active participant. You abetted putting all this stuff in place. You're a proponent of a cancel culture that is now driving Americans to distraction. So you cannot hide from your legacy. This is your legacy. So that you guys, you're the hand behind the puppet. So stop trying to pretend that you're not. Valerie Jarrett and the rest of you, and Ambassador Rice and other people. So let's look at this, Lisa Monaco and others. So let's look at the reality of the situation, Mr. Obama. These are your people. These are your policies. And this is what America's about to reject. So let's not try to sing it. The Pied Piper of the left is changing his tune heading into the midterm. I'm not buying it.
Right. I think of, in Biden's case, I think of a saying I saw years ago. My brother had it in his house. He says, I can't blow the whistle. I can't clang the bell. Let the damn thing run on the track and then see who catches hell. You know, that's what they're doing with Biden. He's, you know, somebody else is running the train, but when now that it's going off the track, oh, well, yeah, he's, you know, tone it down, guys. Yeah. You know, but actually, that's the way my life is, you know. You know, being married this many years, I know that I can't, you know, blow the whistle or clang the bell, but.
Plus with Obama too, you know, they brought him out to try and help some people out. But I think a lot of people have started to realize that, you know, maybe Trump was divisive in his own way. Obama was extremely divisive in the country. If you ask me, the racial tensions before Obama were much better than after Obama. You know,
first month in office, he was having, you know, dig in and do beer diplomacy because he stuck his foot in it, and the beer summit. Yeah, you know, it's like that was a direct result of his divisive attitude coming in there. You know, because. Look at how many people voted. You know, he was the first African American or Black American or whatever they choose to call it this week to be elected. You know, and he got a good margin of people voting for him. A lot of moderates and centrists that voted for him that wouldn't normally have voted Democrat, but they saw it as. And yet, the race relations just went off the rails after that. I mean, it started there and went, you know, the finger pointing started the moment he got in and just kept going down. You know,
the left had a huge problem with the election of President Obama. What happened was the whole narrative of a systemically racist country went right out the window.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
exactly.
you had to exacerbate racial tensions so that the African Americans would continue to vote for Democrats.
Yeah.
And that's all that was. It was hideous in its cynicism, but that's exactly what they did. Because for the African American community to look and say, well, this is not a systemically racist country. We've twice elected an African American president. I think yes, things are getting better, and we can continue to make things better. Oh, maybe I'll look at voting Republican so I can get a better job, or maybe I'll look at voting Republican because I like free speech, or maybe I'll look at some of these Republican proposals. They could not have that. So they needed to show that all Republicans are racist, Republicans are horrible, white supremacists run the Republican Party. We need you to keep voting Democrat. So that was the rift they continued to lay out. But the reality of the situation is a systemically racist country doesn't twice with the majority vote elect an African-American president.
Right. Yeah, Oklahoma just a year ago celebrated the 100th anniversary of one of the biggest, race, one of the biggest race massacres,
You commemorated.
We commemorated, yeah. What did I say?
You didn't
celebrate. Yeah, we commemorated, yeah. But the funny thing is they had a march, of Black Lives Matter during that time period, and they attacked a family that was they blocked off a highway, attacked a family that was in their RV and was trying to get to them because they were a white family they were just driving down the interstate, but all of these people that were involved with all of this stuff were all from out of state, and now they got the lawsuits. They're trying to get the lawsuits to, compensation for. Well, there's only one person left alive, black person left alive that was even involved, that was there, and she was just a little girl. She was just a very small child, and but what they don't realize is Tulsa settled this lawsuit 25 years ago. They'd already given compensation to these families, but we got these outside sources that have come in trying to keep this. But in Oklahoma, it's like the other day. Just Friday, I was standing there talking to a woman. We were just talking. She was a black lady. You know what her complaints were? The fact that none of these young people want to work. None of these young people want to, have any. And she was between 40 and 50 years old, but she said they don't want, she says, I try to get these people to come out, and, I had a project at the house that they were supposed to come do the installation, and I had to leave work 3 times. That was lost wages to me, and they didn't show up when they promised they would because they don't have enough people, or they don't have, somebody in scheduling because these young people don't. That's what her and I stood there waiting on somebody to come wait on us, for 45 minutes, and not once did we discuss the racial divide in the country. We talked about what was real, and that was the high price of things. You pay people this money, and yet they don't want to follow through, or you get inferior merchandise or stuff like this. That's what we talked about. And my wife and I have gone several places. We run into blacks, and we all talk about the same thing. My God, did you see how much a gallon of milk was in there? Not one of them is concerned about Black Lives Matter. We had 6 people standing down here at the height of the Black Lives Matter downtown holding up their signs. 2 black people, all the rest of them were bun-wearing, tight, skinny jean white kids.
Right. The racial divide is overrated. We're not nearly as racially divided as the media would make it out to be. Maybe a couple of years ago in 2020, when the George Floyd issue was on fire, yes, but that is I think run its course in terms of having that much steam, and people just want to have a little normalcy back.
Well, who's opposed to defunding the police? The people most affected by it, the African-American community, the minority community, the poor communities that are being ravaged by crime are the ones who most oppose defunding the police. People are people. It's like John F. Kennedy said, we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future, and we are all mortal. And I think if we remember that, we'll all be fine. And I think that people who try to separate us based upon artificial distinctions like that, it's very un-American of them to try to do it, and I think it's going to inure to their detriment. Gentlemen, Mike, Lloyd, Art, always a pleasure.
And we got a bonus tonight. He was only supposed to be here for 30 minutes, and we got a little over an hour.
You guys are so engaging.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Good luck to Lee Zeldin. Good luck to O'Day. Good luck to everybody. that isn't a Democrat.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys.
Good talking with you, Thaddeus.
Bye, Thaddeus.
All righty. So we've got a bunch of races going on. We'll wrap it up shortly here. We've got the race in Pennsylvania. We got Fetterman against Dr. Oz, and Oprah's not down with Dr. Oz, so she's supporting Fetterman. And then we have race in Ohio, and that race is tightening up. It looks like Vance may win that Senate seat. We got races in Michigan. Dixon, she's within striking distance of winning. And there's a few House races there that looks like the Republicans are going to take a lot of seats there in Michigan. Here in Colorado, we got 2 House seats that are competitive. Hopefully we can at least take one. I would love to take both of those, take the Senate seat and the governorship, because we all know that Polis, he wants to be president. So if he wins here, here's my prediction what's going to happen. Right after the elections, I think in January or February, they're going to dump Kamala, get rid of her, put Polis in, and then they'll say, oh, well, we need to invoke the 25th Amendment. Polis becomes president.
But
and then, not only that, he'll be the first president in years that have served more than 2 terms, because he could actually serve 10 years. He could serve half of one term and run for 2 more terms.
The thing is, how are they going to get rid of Kamala?
Oh,
does she have to be impeached?
No, I think
been elected. She was elected.
Are going to come to her, and they're going to, and I think
her to
all
resign.
The handlers there, they're going to say, Kamala, you got that nice house. It'd be ashamed if something were to happen to that nice house you got.
Yeah, that I was going to say, because that's the only way they're going to either get it. They're going to have to get her resigned, because even the Republicans.
Yep, it will. They'll have her resign. Yeah, and Polis, he'll be the first openly gay vice president, and then in 24 it'd be Polis and Buttigieg.
I just want everybody to know that when Art was making fun of Mr. Fetterman, we have that right, because we're 3 Gimps and we can make fun of other Gimps.
That's right.
And the whole Fetterman thing, I have a feeling that I don't know how anybody in good conscience can vote for him based on the fact that he clearly is not in control of his faculties. But much like with Biden, or perhaps even worse, it's literally like it seems like an elder abuse or a disabled person abuse type situation. He shouldn't be in that position. He doesn't have the capability to answer a question, much less participate in the Senate. I mean, he just
even putting the stroke and the effects of the stroke. Of course, I deal with that every day because of Judy, and I know how it's been a year and a half, and she's still dealing, and sometimes it gets worse, depending on the day. But let's put the stroke stuff aside. What were his qualifications other than being mayor, who happened to obviously be racist because he chases a black man jogging with a shotgun in his own town, okay? Because he thought he heard shots fired and he was trying to capture the guy. Then the guy's never done anything. He lived in his parents' basement till he was in his 50s. They had to have been brain dead to nominate him, not counting the stroke. Just to vote for people to vote for him is beyond my understanding, because, and there again, I think it's a situation where they need somebody that they can pull the strings on, just like they did with Joe Biden. I think that's he'll never be in charge. Somebody else will be pulling the strings. You know, we got a puppet master there, and that's what I think is the case.
Well, Tuesday's a big night, and we'll be. I mean, I think all three of us and many of the folks watching the show, they're gonna all be watching. And hopefully this red wave turns into a tsunami. I want to thank everybody in the chat for coming. And Mike, I'm glad you're here, and sorry that you have COVID. Hope you have a speedy recovery. Lloyd, always a pleasure having you on the show. Everybody,
always a pleasure being here.
Have a great weekend. God bless you. Catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.